Good evening, everybody. A warm welcome. We've got lots of new faces that have joined us this evening. That's it, Vito. We haven't seen you for a while, Vito. Nice to see you. Hello, Jess. Hello, Candace. Hello, Yolanda. Elsa. Lovely to see everyone. Hester, we haven't seen you for a long time. And Kana here in North London. Hello. Lovely to see you. Welcome, everybody. Marianne, we haven't seen you for ages. Lovely to see you as well. Wonderful. And Ilse, lovely. Wonderful. So a very, very warm welcome to everybody. Welcome to an evening of empaths, finding grounding and embodiment in this curious, chaotic world in which we live. I am super excited for this evening. Shaka, who is sitting in Costa Rica, I actually had to send her a message and say, "Oi, get off the beach, you've got a masterclass." Because she was so busy grounding in the forest and swimming in the sea that she was nearly an hour late. So hopefully some of her advice she will be able to hear for herself today. Anyway, as I say, a real warm welcome to you. Shaka is a psychic. She is a yoga instructor. She lives in Costa Rica, of which I visited her in December. So yeah, I just want to, Shaka also teaches psychic development at the school, and she's been part of our community for a long time. So I just wish everybody here a beautiful evening. I'm going to be jumping in. Shaka, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about helping us as empaths anchor in this tumultuous world in which we live.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Cindy. And yeah, we're just having we were not aligned with time at all. We were off time. I definitely recommend that as a very important thing, actually, to do unstructured time. So we got a little bit lost. So welcome, everyone. So lovely to see you all, familiar faces and new. Thank you, Cindy, for the short introduction. As she says, my name is Shaka, and I'm a yoga teacher by day, and also work as a psychic, and also teach the psychic development of the school. I see a few of my students, past and present, as well. And I also teach the course for empaths. And this masterclass is a little bit of an extension of that, kind of coming from a slightly different angle, I guess, with our mind on the state of the world. The empath course generally is a course that's really about self-development. It's something that has maybe I would say maybe a culmination of a lot of tools that I've learned to manage my incredible sensitivity over the years. And last year came to Cindy and said, I've got this great idea for a course. It's something I've been wanting to do for a while, and now offer this with the school. So, like I said, that's kind of a more general like kind of toolkit of self-development and self-care. But this class today is going to be a little bit more specifically focused around this moment in our history, essentially. This moment in the world when it can feel like it's chaotic, overwhelming, there's a lot going on, and we may be asking different questions. What can I do to help? How can I manage my own energy in amongst this? How can I find grounding? How can I find peace when it feels like there's a lot of not peace in the world? So I would like to start today. I will just, maybe let me share my screen just for a moment, and then we'll come back, because we'll start with the practical, just give you a sense of what we'll do today. So hang on, good old Zoom. Where is this share screen button? There it is. Okay, so I'm hoping you can see this. You can give me a little thumbs up if you can. Sensitivity. In a speeding world, finding peace in a time of chaos. So what can we really do, particularly when we're sensitives? and we're picking up so much. So let's just talk a little bit about what we'll do today. So we're going to do a visualization and embodiment exercise, and I'll go through that in a moment. So I'll stop sharing and then we'll do a little practical, and then we'll have a little presentation, which isn't anything too deep. I kind of wanted to leave it a little bit open, and then we've got a little bit of a practical. And then we've got some Q&A, so we've got some time at the end for questions, as I'm sure many of you will have them. And that will be the order of the day. And Cindy, also feel free to just jump in as and when, if you feel like, yeah, just be really interactive. And also, if anyone has any questions throughout, I would ask, just put them in the comments or the Q&A box, and then maybe we can start to collect questions as we go along towards the end. Yes, Cindy?
So, Shaka, it's the chat box. We don't have Q&A on this. And
Okay.
yeah, please just all say hello. I did forget that. So, and if they're relevant questions at the time, I'll jump in. Otherwise, I'll just keep them to the end, and we can do them then.
Wonderful. And yeah, absolutely. And say hello, everyone, where you're hailing from. As we know, it's the International School of Intuition and Healing. I was very excited when we started a PDF on Thursday, and we've got people from all over the globe. So really incredible. So celebrate where you're coming from, where you're hailing from. And so I'm just going to close that now, and I'm going to stop share, and then let's move into the practical. So we're going to do some body embodiment exercises. We're going to do specifically 3, but they're all related. And I'm going to just talk you through them, each one of them. And the first one, we ideally can get on your feet. So if you can, you're going to get on your feet. And we're going to move as big. Well, let me tell you first. So we don't need to get on your seat just yet. I've just given you a heads up, just so you know what's coming. You can do this on your chair. So if you feel you don't want to get up, that's absolutely fine. You can stay on your chair. But we're going to do some vigorous free movement. Yeah, we'll do this for a minute. And you can move freely however you want, but we want to make this as vigorous as possible. Then we're going to sit still, stand still. We're going to stand and be still for a minute. And then we'll take a moment, and then I want you to maybe message, I will get some feedback of kind of how that feels, maybe anything that comes up, sensations. Yeah. And we'll explore, then we'll do another exercise, which will be similar. And then the last and final exercise it'll be a little bit more slow, a little bit more gentle. Yeah. And then we'll just kind of move through these different embodied states. And then we'll maybe take a moment to reflect what comes up. All right. So let's do. Actually, Cindy, do you mind getting the timer up and then do just 1 minute, just so we know that we've got 1 minute, and then we kind of know what the time is. And I'm gonna, yeah, there it is. I've got it. It's in the apps. So we want, like, okay, we ready? So if you want to stand up, I'm going to invite you to stand on your feet. Like I said, you can do this seated down if you want to. I'll start the timer, and then you can just move freely. Now, if you want to, you can turn your camera off. So if you're feeling like you're maybe a little bit self-conscious, then feel free to turn your camera off. And you can close your eyes. If you have some music, you can even put some music on if that helps you. So let's go. And you can follow me as well. So you maybe just want to start with just shaking the hands, maybe just shaking the legs. Then get the shoulders and the arms involved. Don't be scared to be silly. You want to rock the hips, maybe stomp, maybe jump, maybe reach towards the sky. Shake your head. Head bangers, rock and roll bangers. Like you're at a silent rave. Get as silly as you like. Reach for the sky. Maybe bend over, touch the floor, shake your hips. And then keep going. Anyone do boxercise? Get the head, get the neck involved, get every single part of your body involved. Good. And keep going. Last couple of seconds. Well done. Good. And then we're just going to stay standing. Close your eyes. Relax the hands by the side of the body. Have your feet maybe just wider than your hips. And then just allow yourself to settle. Allow your breath to slow down. And I want you to come out of your mind, be fully in your body, and just noticing. What do you feel? What's the first thing you notice? Maybe it's your breath. Maybe it's really feeling your heartbeat. Maybe it's feeling the feet in the floor. And as your breath starts to slow down, maybe you start to notice where in the body is there tightness? Is there any holding and tension anywhere? Sometimes you find this in the shoulders, the hips. They usually are hot spots, but you may find that it's somewhere else for you. And as your breath starts to slow down, I'm really inviting you to take big, deep inhales, long exhales, so that you can really feel into your body and feel into the sensation. Good. We'll just take 5 more seconds here. Wonderful. And then you can open your eyes and come back to your seat. And then I'm just going to invite you now, maybe just to put some descriptive words in the chat box. Anything that you noticed or came up for you. So 1 word, 2 words, doesn't have to be complicated. More awake and alive. Wow. Releasing, yeah, pain. Wow. Out of your head. Great. Tingly fingers. Loose. Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And there is no right or wrong. That's the beautiful thing. When we start to work with the body, there is no right or wrong. There's nothing you should or shouldn't feel. It's just giving us an opportunity to notice what's actually present. Yeah. Let's do a next exercise. This one's a little less vigorous. So again, I'm going to invite you to stand up. And so we'll do this.
You didn't say there was a busy masterclass. Come on, everyone, stand up.
I know, sorry. I'm sorry. I should have told everyone to put their tracksuit and trainers on. I'm sorry. But this one is that was it. That was the most vigorous that we get. So how interesting. Lots of fear in the body. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's really, we really start to notice what's there. So we're going to do another minute. Again, you can turn your cameras off. You can close your eyes. This time we're going to do a different kind of movement. And I want you to do a kind of more flowful movement. Yeah. So more slow, more conscious, and again, follow your body. And if you can, also follow your breath. Yeah. So allowing yourself. So I'm going to start the timer now. Oh, there we are. And so again, just letting this be completely free. Again, you can close your eyes. And try, if you can, to stay with your breath, that full breath that you may have been able to connect with our first exercise. Allow your breath to lead. You'll feel it guiding the body in ways that it wants to move. And you can use all of the limbs. Or maybe you just feel drawn to 1 or 2. Maybe you want to do more circular motions. Maybe you just free flow. Maybe for those of you who had any pain with the first movement exercise, maybe you want to just good. And then again, we're going to come back into stillness. So we're going to stay standing, close the eyes, relax the hands down the side of the body, drop the shoulders. And then again, just notice. Noticing if there's something different. Or maybe the same thing is coming through. Maybe the same thing with a new perception or depth of understanding. And allowing your breath to be long, to be steady, to be full. Be open to the messages of your body. And leaving the mind just connecting to the sensation. And you can maybe locating where in the body is the sensation. Maybe there's a piece of your body that's wanting to speak to you. Be open and curious. Then when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Come back into the space. And again, I'm going to invite you to share any words, sensations, anything you noticed. If you notice the difference even between the first exercise and the second. Interesting. Calm is coming up a lot. Rooted, grounded. Wow. Wow. Nice. Hands have been holding, yeah, lots of tension. So you notice where you're holding the tension. Interesting. Safe. Beautiful, warm vibrations. Shoulder pain and feeling of collapse and defeat. Much calmer, release. Yeah, interesting. So let's do the final neck pain. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. Let's do our final final exercise, which we're going to do seated. You'll be pleased to hear. We won't be getting up for this one. Last one, we'll be seated for this one. And I'm going to invite you just to soften into your chair. We're just going to do a breathing exercise. So we're going to do it's a classical breath. It's considered maybe the most optimal breath that we can take. And it's when we breathe in for 6 and then we breathe out for 6. And then we're just going to do this 6 times. And then we'll breathe normally. And then again, we'll take a moment just to be in the stillness, breathing normally. And then again, we'll maybe just notice what comes through and what comes up. Okay, so allow yourself to be nice and comfortable. Just soften into your seat, into your chair. Close the eyes and then just breathe as normal. First of all, just breathing in and breathing out. You may notice that there is a lot more sensation in the body, a lot more sensitivity. Maybe you have more access and connection to your breath. And so if you can, soften behind the eyes and soften the jaw, soften the shoulders. And just let the tongue rest behind the teeth. and the jaw is slightly open. And we're breathing in and breathing out. And breathing in and breathing out. And breathing in and breathing out. And we'll start on the next inhale. So inhaling now for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Last time. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then just breathing as normal. And stay here, keep the eyes closed. And allowing yourself to drop deeper into the quietness, into the calm. But also staying fully present with any pain in the body, any tension. If anything came up for you in the previous 2 exercises. We're giving space for both. Giving space for where they may be feeling calm and spacious and peaceful. But also holding acknowledgement and care for where there may be tension, tightness, pain, apprehension, resistance. Just take a few more breaths here in the silence. And then when you're ready, you can just drop your chin down, open your eyes, and bring your awareness back into the space. Welcome back, everyone. Again, I would love if you're comfortable to, if you're okay to please share in the chat box anything you feel. And again, maybe noticing is anything different. Tired and embodied, present. Neck pain is gone now. Wow, Sandra, that's amazing. Calmness, balanced. Wow, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Peaceful. Relaxed. Great. In the moment, grounded. Beautiful. Beautiful. So I'll move on to the presentation. Thank you so much for going for going with me on this. And And the idea is for us to notice, right? Depending on what we do, we have a really incredible effect on our body. And how we feel in our body affects how we feel about ourselves and how we really are interfacing with the world. I call embodiment direct experience. It bypasses the mind, the logic. That's why when we do somatic or body work, we never want any judgment. Yeah. You know, we don't want to be judging our states as good or bad or right or wrong. We want to create a space where all of what is present for us is able to be held. Yeah. I'm going to talk a little bit about nervous system when I do the presentation. And I'll pull out a little bit more about why we did those exercises, and how we can start to utilize those kinds of practices in our everyday life, to help us feel more calm and grounded, with despite everything that takes place. The one thing about embodiment and somatic experience and really being in touch with the body is it puts us in the present moment. It puts us here right now. It finds we're rooted in this moment. Yeah. And that's incredibly important. Again, as I come into this presentation, I'm going to explain a little bit more why. So I'm going to share my screen again. And again, if you have any questions, anything comes up throughout, Cindy, feel free to interrupt if you need to. But if you have any questions, please put them in the text box as well. So we'll come back to the presentation. Here we are. So I've decided to do this presentation, not as a kind of list. I really kind of was like, how do I do this in such a way that allows us to remain in this embodied space? So I've kind of just got words, and then I'm going to just talk a little bit more. And so the first word is, oh, I want to be able to see my notes. Hang on. Oh, hang on. Cindy, do you know how to do that? Where you're, hold on. How do I get to see my notes at the same time?
Go there and use a presenter view. Down one there. Will that help?
Yes. Who gave me that? Who was that? That was fantastic. Thank you, Marianne. Presenter view, amazing. Right, so everyone can just see this. Oh, amazing. This is incredible. I never knew this. So learning how to use PowerPoint. Thank you so much. So meta crisis. This is a word that's commonly used for this moment in history, which essentially alludes to a coalescence of very big issues in the world that all seem to be happening at once. So that's why it's called a meta crisis. It's not just one crisis, it's an accumulation of many crises. These include climate change, ecological breakdown, extreme inequality, mental health crisis, war and conflict, social tension, division. We know a lot about this. And you know, technological advancement as well, you know, and whether or not we think that's a good thing or a bad thing, but, you know, we're seeing the rise of AI, you know, displacing jobs and things like that. And again, it's just that these things that we can start to feel a lot of fear around. And obviously we could even put in here, part of the meta crisis is maybe even a crisis in meaning. A disconnection from finding ways to create meaning, particularly in these big moments, and then polarization, like I said, a lot of social division. So there's a lot going on in the world. So if there is an inclination that, like, oh my goodness, it's crazy, it's wild, there's a lot going on out there, and these can inculcate a lot of different feelings in us. A lot of them, you know, powerlessness, despair, maybe a lack of hope, maybe thinking, all right, what's tomorrow going to bring? What's in store for my children, my grandchildren, and these kinds of things. So this is just, again, an acknowledgement of the reality that we're living in. Let's not sugarcoat it. Yeah, this is the reality that we're living in. And let's talk about empaths specifically. Yeah, because I think everybody on earth is feeling this to some extent, to a larger or lesser degree. So let's talk a little bit about empaths specifically. Yeah. So for those of you who aren't familiar, but empaths are essentially incredibly sensitive people. So they can feel what other people feel. They have a sense of what other people are thinking or feeling or experiencing. They have deep feeling states, profound responses to their environment, and like highly attuned to others, to their environment, what's going on. So it can also be kind of constant sense of what's happening outside, what's happening around. Now, I'm going to talk about why I think actually this is actually a superpower. It's actually an incredible gift, but it might not feel like it. So some of the things that empaths experience that are challenging is, you know, taking on the energy of thoughts and of other people and really not knowing when it's theirs, particularly if that's these are negative feelings or thoughts, and not really knowing if that's like, is it mine or is it somebody else's? And so, yeah, just kind of inability to locate what's mine, what's theirs. And that can be incredibly confusing. Low social battery. So just really not, you know, not able to, you know, socialize or be in crowds or be around a lot of people. Tendency towards codependency can be, and difficulty setting healthy boundaries, capacity to self-abandon, often without realizing. Yeah, so often these are unconscious. Again, no judgment. It's just these are just generally sometimes how empaths, the gift of empaths can play out in relationships, and this includes, you know, sort of putting other people's needs before their own, and then risk of burnout and conflict averse. So all of these things are like, what? That sounds like the worst thing that you want in this moment. It's a meta crisis. There's crazy things happening in the world, and the empaths, it really does seem, have the short end of the stick here, because really having a strong sense of not only their own personal feelings around what's happening in the world, but then also a real sense of the people around you, how they're responding, how they feel about what's happening around the world. Sometimes I actually feel like that can be more profound, actually. I know this for myself. I think through learning to manage my own energy, I kind of trust my own embodiment and wisdom, but it's actually like sometimes it's the fear around kind of, oh my God, everyone else around me is despairing, you know, depressed, angry. This feels like overwhelming. Yeah. And so on the flip side of the challenges, let's talk about some of the gifts that empaths have, right? So one of the gifts is empathy, this feeling that you're able to empathize with others, and be kind to others, and animals, and children and nature. So a real sense of feeling connection with other people, and being able to empathize and find kindness in your heart for them. So highly intuitive and in tuned, which means that you're able to pick up on unseen emotions. So maybe your friend comes to you and says, I'm fine. And you're able to say, hey, I know you're not fine. Talk to me. You know, this is where it becomes a gift. Psychic abilities, as many of you, they've done my empath course and then gone on to do psychic development, and know that often there is, not always, not every empath's a psychic and not every psychic's an empath, but often there can be a very strong connection between being able to read and have this gift of psychic ability. So good listeners, space holders. So I always say you're probably that person at the party where you get cornered and there's one person you've never met before who wants to tell you their whole life story. I can tell you from start to finish. If you've ever had that experience, you might be an empath. But again, it's a beautiful, beautiful gift. People feel comfortable. People feel like safe enough. People want you to hold their story. It's a gift. And then understanding others on a deeper level, good at nurturing and caring roles, rich in a life. So, you know, again, connected to creativity. Maybe you're an artist in some way through writing or expression in some way. So a real deep connection to art and other things like this. Connection to the natural world. creative and imaginative, spiritually open, healing gifts. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, this is a whole list of gifts. They don't seem like gifts because we live in a world that often deprioritizes these things, and essentially says if they don't make money, they aren't of value. And so part of the empath's path is learning to understand that actually what they bring into the world is a gift, yeah, and reclaiming that, particularly in this moment. Because if we look at all of the things on this list, for example, connecting to nature, you know, being kind to others, being able to hold space, being able to listen, these are all things, if we think about this meta crisis, if we think about this moment in our history where there's so much happening, actually, these are the things that are needed in this moment that can anchor us down into maybe a better trajectory for the future. Yeah. You know, we have a choice in this moment to go, oh goodness, it's all a mess. What can we do? You know, or we can just root down into our practice, into our knowledge, into our gifts, and bring them freely into the world and trust and surrender that actually maybe that could change the trajectory of things. And that's why I believe that empaths have a really important role to play, particularly in this juncture in history. So as you know, I'm actually writing a book on this at the moment. So this is something I'm like really, you know, paying attention to. So let's just talk a little bit about the nervous system. Yeah. It's massive. I could do a whole lecture on nervous system. So for those of you maybe a little bit more familiar with nervous system and somatic work, this is a kind of a little bit of a whistle-stop tour. I can't include everything, but there's some really important things that I do want to talk about the nervous system. Yeah, because our nervous system is essentially what connects our body and our mind. And this is what allows us to experience the world in the way that we do. It's what creates our makeup of how we experience the world. It's so important. So maybe let's talk about why I did the exercise that I did at the beginning. And so you may have noticed that we went through essentially a few different states. And it speaks to the different states that our nervous system holds. So we have our automatic nervous system. So we have different parts of our nervous system. We're mostly concerned with the automatic nervous system, autonomic nervous system. I always say that. I always get that wrong. And then we have at two ends, we have the parasympathetic, which is our kind of rest state, our rest and digest state, as we say, that feeling of calm, feeling of relaxed, feeling of spaciousness, connection. That's our parasympathetic. And then we have our sympathetic nervous system, which is the excitement, the overwhelm, the heightened emotions. Yeah. And then, so what we did was we moved through all of those states in our first exercise. Yeah. And then we were able to really sit with each one and notice what was present for us in each one. There's another state, which is called a ventric state. Yeah, which is essentially a balance between the two. So often the parasympathetic nervous system state gets a lot of bad press. Sorry, the sympathetic nervous system state gets a lot of bad press, right? So it's usually, you know, our fight or flight, you know, that kind of excited, you know, like sort of ready, like heightened, because we live in the world that we live in is very busy, it's buzzy, there's a lot going on. So oftentimes that's the state that we're predominantly in. That's the state that we're predominantly activated in, this heightened state. But actually it has a purpose, right? And what we really want is an elastic nervous system. We want to be able to move into a heightened state if we need to. Maybe you do need to run. Maybe you do need to get upset about something. Maybe you need to express yourself and express your emotions in some way. Maybe you need to go for a run and, you know, jog off some energy. You know, however it is, like there is a way in which we must express excess energy in the body. Yeah. So it's a part of a way that we cream off, burn off excess energy. Yeah. And then also we want to be able to move into a place where we can be calm, where we can connect to other people, where we can soften, where we can feel safe, where we can be vulnerable. And what we want within as nervous system is an elastic between those two states, so that when we're in one, we can maybe rest back into another, we can move between these different states. And so what the exercise that we did at the beginning is whether you'll notice maybe one state you feel maybe more comfortable in. So for some of us, we're more like able to be active and energized, but find it hard to relax, and vice versa. Yeah. So again, no judgment, but just noticing, yeah, where your nervous system resides in its natural state. Yeah. So trauma, we're going to talk a little bit about trauma. Trauma is unprocessed emotion in the body. It could be related to one incident. It might be related to multiple repeated incidents. It might even be vicarious. Yeah. So we can have vicarious trauma where we witness a traumatic event, and then we feel that. Yeah. Again, trauma is a massive subject. I don't want to get massively into it, but essentially what's important to note is it is unprocessed emotion in the body. It's not really about what happens. It's not about the event. It's really about how our body is able to move through a way of processing whatever it has experienced. What happens when we experience trauma is when the body's not able to process for whatever reason. There could be multiple different reasons as to why the body isn't able to complete a process, and then it gets stuck. Yeah, and then we're on loop in our bodies, right? Not in our minds, in our bodies. And so this often happens in stressful environments, particularly if we're in a kind of chronically stressful environment. And so when I talk about trauma, predominantly when we talk about healing trauma, we're talking about working with the body. We're talking about direct experience. The reason this is important, because we live in a very cognitive world right now. We live in a very technologically cognitive world. Everything's done in these computers. Even the avatars, even down to like how we're viewing each other. We're just literally viewing the top of our heads. Yeah, everything's all this focused, right? So what happens is we become disembodied. We're totally disembodied. We're totally disconnected from what the message in our bodies, what's happening in our bodies. What is our body trying to tell us? And this is actually incredibly important thing to be able to be connected to. But trauma will often disconnect us from that, yeah, because what happens is our body feels unsafe. So if there's any sort of trauma looping in the body will feel, it'll be holding tension, discomfort, maybe even impeding the breath, and all kinds of things. And so when we're working with trauma, we're working directly with the body, yeah, directly with the somatic experience, and giving our bodies a chance to maybe process and complete the energetic process that wasn't able to, which causes the stuckness in the body. And so what I say, this works with the primal self, yeah, not the self that we want to be or think we should be, or the self that is what society wants us to be or our families want us to be. It's the self that is. Yeah. So when we come into our body, we are dealing with what is. And so in many ways, I feel like this is what allows us to deal with essentially truth, right? Truth is what we're feeling, what's happening, without any judgment. The reason this is important is because we're living, part of the crisis that we are experiencing at the moment is because we are all experiencing some kind of trauma. Maybe that's personal trauma, but it also can be this kind of meta trauma, which is like, oh my goodness, like, like whole swathes of species are dying. People might be losing their homes. There's war, there's suffering, and so there's a tendency to jump out the body and go right into the head and intellectualize and stay up here because it feels safer than sitting down into the body and listening to what our bodies are saying, which often there's a lot of grief, sadness, there's a lot going on in the body. And so part of our nervous system work is broadening our capacity to be more in our bodies, to be more present, to be grounded, present is what I want to say. Yeah. When this is important because when we are in a traumatic state, it prevents us from connection. I did a training recently, and one of the ways in which healing from trauma was defined was actually it's not capacity to be calm. Yeah. So healing your nervous system is not being calm. It's actually your capacity for connection, your capacity to connect with others, to hold and be with and be in relationship with others. This is incredibly important. Again, coming back to our meta crisis, there's a lot going on in the world, and really we need each other more than anything. We're finding these ways to find our ways back to each other, out of what essentially is a lot of crisis that is disconnecting us. Sorry, my battery's low. I have to plug that in there. So let's talk about, and actually maybe this is a good place to take some questions if you want to. Does Cindy, want to jump in or anything, or shall I continue?
Oh no, I've got a burning question that I want to ask. So I'm curious around the nervous system. It's not, as I'm the energy rather than the somatic worker. So we hold this trauma, and at this time, what I'm hearing is actually this metaverse that you're talking about that is building up on top of the experiences and the traumas we've had through our lifetime. And so in this because I find the world overstimulating at the moment. There's just, how do we hold all of this? So is that correct in saying, I mean, if I were to see it energetically, I just see this piling on, these nerves, and then what if we're holding it? Like you're able to like you say, hold it in your head, like hold it outside your body. I know I do that really well. I always have stiff neck and sore bum muscles because I hold it up my body. But where's that point where it just comes in? Or
well, there's different, it's going to be different for different people, I would say, depending on a whole array of different things, but ultimately we know at some point the body's going to want to process that. The body's going to take you, either that's going to show up as pain, it's going to show up as emotional outbursts, it's going to show up as completely shut down, it may show up as addiction, it may show up in different ways in our lives, because essentially our body's trying to find, and it's intelligent. It's actually an intelligent response to what's happening in the body. The body's trying to find a way to process or deal with or subdue what essentially might be something incredibly uncomfortable. Particularly emotions like anger, grief, shame. These are usually the big ones that are like, and particularly in our society, which is really about, it's very hierarchical. There is no time to be, quote unquote, a loser, right? So, you don't have time. I don't have time to deal with uncomfortable feelings. I just haven't got time, and no one's going to give me leeway. No one's going to give me compassion. No one's going to hold that space for me. So I've got to just shove that down and keep on going. So I've got work to do. I've got bills to pay. And so like you said, what's happening is it piles on, it piles on, and piles on, and piles on, and piles on. And so what we're wanting to be doing is finding these places where we can unravel, where we can be held in our softness, where we can be with difficult feelings and find ways to process them. There's different ways to do that. Obviously, somatic practice directly, obviously yoga works directly with the nervous system through the breath. That's what the connecting channel is between the body and the mind, is the breath. So this is, again, the breath follows the sympathetic to the parasympathetic as we exhale. So it follows these two energies in our body. So that's why breath is incredibly important. Not necessarily breath work. I'm obviously from yoga lineage, I'm more a fan of pranayama. I think everything can be found in there, but even modern techniques of so-called breath work talk about emotional release. So having these moments where you can have a big release in your body, and maybe this is part of how you can get some of that off, and then reside in a calm state, which is why we started with a more active, energy practice, which was like, right, just get all the energy and then sit with it. What's happening? Then, you know, things are able to really come up to the surface, and we fully be sensitive to what's happening in our bodies, because most of the time we're not paying attention to what's in our bodies. And what we want to be able to do is like unfurl, unravel, soften, find places where we can be vulnerable, because these are the principles that are going to help us navigate this next chapter in the world. Does that answer your question, Cindy?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think I was probably making a point about the fact that we've been, you know, a lot of people are still holding traumas from the past, and now this is just an added
it's more trauma on personal trauma, 100%. So now we are totally ill-equipped. So not only am I dealing with my own personal stuff, but now I'm totally exhausted and ill-equipped to deal with what's in front of me, which is this meta crisis, which I'm going to talk about, because let's talk about resilience. Yeah, this is kind of part of our, I want to say, bounce back from trauma. But bouncing back insinuates that we kind of go back to some place where we were before, and we never do. Yeah. So no matter what, trauma changes the course of our lives. That's one thing we have to accept. Nothing will be the same again. We won't be the same person that we were before we experienced trauma. But what we can experience is resilience. I want to say, first of all, resilience is not in capital letters, is not toughing it out. It's not shutting down. It's not soldiering on. It's not becoming hardened, you know, and keep going. That's not resilience. Yeah. Resilience is our capacity to come back to a place of what we would maybe say our ventric state. We'll come back to a place where we can experience softness, connection, rest, calm, and these kinds of things after a challenging or difficult experience. Maybe even a challenging and difficult life. Yeah, we could even say, like Cindy says, often this is not just one-off. This is usually a whole array of experiences. And so I class resiliences, and it's different things, there are different ways to think about this, but ultimately resilience is our capacity to expand and be evolved by difficult experiences that we have, and for each individual that's going to look slightly different, and it's our capacity to find our way back to reconnection, to love, to forgiveness, to acceptance, to grace, despite what has happened to us. And it's very important. I want to make a distinction here. This is not spiritual bypassing. Yeah, this is not coming, like staying in the head, going soldier on and just call it love and light. Call it love. No. That's not, it's not that. So just really, you know, so it's really our genuine capacity to experience grace, acceptance, forgiveness, love, connection. Yeah. And sometimes what we start to notice when we work with trauma, we're, oh my goodness, there's a whole lot of stuff in the way. There's a whole stuff I gotta clear and get past and get through before I can truly reside in that. Sometimes it's just life. We have moments and then we got to get on with things. And then we have moments and then we got to get on with things. But ultimately it's our capacity to process what needs to be processed so that we can reside, I would say, in our true state, which is a true state of bliss. If you're spiritualist like me, I feel like that's what we were born with, this essence, yeah, with a soul, which has our story, and gives our lives meaning. And I believe this is our ultimate state, that is our truest state, essentially, that exists before life comes along and, like you said, Cindy, kind of piles on all of this stuff. It's kind of like before all the stuff gets piled on. Yeah. So resilience builds us. It's like a muscle. So think even about the gym. You know, you go to the gym, you work out your muscles. At first, it's hard. It feels difficult. You're weak, but you build. It's a practice. So I would say resilience is a practice, like any other. Yeah, it's something that we build and allows us to grow. It's what allows us to use difficulty and challenge and turn it into something positive. So we could say alchemy, you know, even it's the alchemist in us. If we think about it on a spiritual level, our capacity to turn copper into gold. You know, and it's a process. Like I said, it's going to be different for each one of us. We'll have a different process with it, but essentially it's a capacity to really be with whatever we've experienced, process those emotions, and come back to a place where we can experience calm, connection, love, forgiveness, acceptance, and these kinds of things. Okay. So,
Shaka, I just want to add to that, because I think that spiritual bypassing is really key at this time, and sort of noticed with myself. There we go. Somebody's just asked to talk a little bit about spiritual bypassing. That allowing it to go and transmuting it, there's something about going into the pain. And I always think of childbirth, of the woman, you know, like this gestation, and there's the time when like, you know, and I'm going to smile because Shaka and I were both going through a lot of difficult times when I was there in December. It was like we were both just, and we had to go into that pain and into that sadness to figure it out and give it spaciousness to figure it out, and not to push it away, and really feel the sadness or the painfulness, but that integration of holding it in the heart space really then allows you to shift it. It's when we run away from our shadow and we try to avoid it that actually the transformation comes back and comes back and comes back, because it will come back, right?
For sure. Yeah, no, for sure. There's no escaping it. That's the, you know, life is going to pin you down, you know, wherever it pins you is going to pin you down somewhere at some point. You know, there is no, that's the nature of law, and, you know, the law of karma, really. And I don't mean karma as in punishment. I mean, just cause and effect. And yeah, and you know, I think spiritual bypassing can be very common in what we call maybe the conscious or spiritual community, because ultimately we do know our true state is bliss. Our true state is our capacity to connect. Our true state is these feelings of beautiful feelings of connection and love and these things. But what happens with spiritual bypassing is we make a judgment call. Yeah, we say, I must experience those things all the time, despite what I actually feel in my body. Whereas I feel like somatics or somatic experiencing, actually that's TM, that's a trademark, but I mean, in terms of experience ourselves somatically, really, again, this is why non-judgment is it's a big part of any dharmic practice, I believe. But this is why we're not to judge our emotions. Yeah, that's good, that's bad, I shouldn't or I shouldn't, because all we do is we create more resistance in the body, because I should be happy, but you're not happy. So isn't it better to lean into that and lean into the feeling of, what's that telling me? Why am I not happy? What's going on? What's happening around me? You know, and then honoring that and following that process. It's not a quick process. And also I think it's important to note that somatic work is not a fast process. It's probably the slowest, but it's the truest, right? So again, in this world, again, it feels like a rebellious act to be somatically informed, because it goes against all of the principles of our current paradigm, which is fast, quick, efficient, now, the best, you know, and if it ain't, throw it in the bin, and if it isn't making much, throw it in the bin. It's like this is like you say, we're highly stimulated, there's a lot going on. So when do we get time? When am I going to get time? Who's going to hold me in that? Who's going to listen to my story of me saying, you know what, that thing that happened 12 years ago, it's still with me? And when do I get a chance to talk about that and be with it? And this is important, and that's why the healing is important, because it's not just our own healing, it's then our capacity to hold that space for others so that others may heal, and then that becomes the norm. Then that becomes the shift, the paradigm shift, potentially, the thing that potentially may save us. But it's not quick. It's not the quick answer. It's not the fast fix. It's a very slow, embodied, truthful experience. And you follow with the body. You don't impose on the body. you follow. The body tells you and you follow. You ask questions, you're curious, and then you let that unfold. It's an unfolding, I would say. Yeah. But it's a truthful unfolding about where we are, how we feel. And when we allow that, when we give the body that space, then already we're experiencing grace. Already, that's the feeling of grace, is that I'm allowed to be who I am and I'm allowed to feel what I feel. Yeah. And that is incredibly important for empaths because they are feeling a lot. We are feeling a lot all of the time. I said to my friend, I was like, you know, I've been up to the sky and spoken to the angels. I've fought dragons. I've been buried down into the ground. I've read a tsunami wave. I had an encounter with a little goblin, and this was just in 24 hours. I have been on a whole adventure, a whole emotional roller coaster in literally 24 hours. And this is the nature of being so sensitive and empathic. Is that there's just so much moving through you. So this is why it's incredibly important, most important for empaths to do this work. It's maybe what's led me more towards somatic practice, ultimately, is that actually that capacity to process emotion and let it go, process it, let it go, is what allows me to be present, what allows me to just ride the wave. Ride the wave wherever it's taking me, is ride the wave and let everything move freely through me, rather than me being like, oh, I gotta be, I should be, I'm not, it's like kind of really allowing it to move through. And particularly with empaths, we're feeling so much, so we have to find a means and a way for us to process these excess emotions when they come through. Yeah.
Shaka, I
Cindy,
also wanted
add to
to
that. Yeah.
say the other thing that I really feel, and I don't know if you, but ultimately those really tough ones become our superpowers. The big
Yes.
rocks that we're shifting in our lives often
Oh,
become our
yes.
superpowers.
Yes.
If we don't push them away and we embrace them, if I think
Yes.
of like the most, in my adult life, the traumatic breakups that I've had, my alcohol addiction, my codependent relationship, those are the ones that get
Yeah.
me to sit here today and do the work I love.
Absolutely.
Um, because I didn't push them away. I went through them, and learned from them. And I think that, and if I didn't have the sensitivity and that possibly wouldn't allow us to be here talking today.
Absolutely. I love that. You preempted, Cindy, you preempted. I was coming on to this, but absolutely. I love it. But it is our greatest wound, actually, the part of us that is the most, sore, vulnerable, the things that we've been through, like, even the most terrible things that we might have experienced, actually can, once we do our own healing, become our medicine. It becomes the medicine for the world. It becomes a place in which we are able to meet others, because we're not going, pain, difficult emotions, and then pushing yourself away and then pushing others away. Now you're able to say, hey, I know, because I've experienced that too, and I feel that too. And this is a place that is safe for you to honor what is true for you. And so I really believe that you're right, Cindy. This is our greatest wounds to become our medicine for ourselves and then medicine for the world. Michael Meade talks a lot about this. And if you've done my empath course, I talk about Michael Meade. He's like I fan a little bit on Michael Meade. He does a lot of myth. So let's move on. Let's move on. So why do I think sensitivity is a superpower?
Sorry.
And you really, and I think what you said, Cindy, is perfectly it's just perfect, because it's exactly one of the things is that when you're sensitive, you don't have a choice. There really isn't many ways that you can avoid. Like you essentially confronted with this. You will have to find a way to process, to step in, to move through. You're kind of left without a choice. And like I said, in many ways, this is a gift, because that's what allows you to bring your medicine, your special and unique medicine into the world. And so, our current paradigm, has a lot to distract us. Remember, there's entertainment, there's things going on, there's parties, there's music, there's this, there's that. There's just like so much to take you away from what you're actually experiencing and feeling in any given moment. And particularly if we're talking about trauma, personal trauma and collective trauma, then this paradigm is, what's most of us going to do? We're going to numb, we're going to distract, we're going to shut off, we're going to shut down, and maybe even just live in a fantasy of our own desires, mediated through this technology, this virtual reality of technology. We will just kind of, these are maybe the ways in which we will cope with not being able to feel safe in our bodies. But like I said, being sensitive isn't going to allow us to do that. We don't have that ability. It's going to show up in some way. It's going to show up through pain, through dysfunction, through relationships, through somewhere it's going to show up, the suffering, and it will be very confrontational. And oftentimes that's the way. We sometimes don't even do this work until we have to, and that's the nature of these things as well. Again, no judgment. And so just looking at my notes here, this is why the empath faces so much challenge, because it's very difficult for them to follow what the paradigm asks. But this is actually a good thing. So this is where the personal becomes political, political becomes personal, right? We start to see this mirror between what's going on in the world and what's going on with us. Because as sensitives, we can't do the distraction, the numbing, the shutting down. So actually the reason why this becomes very challenging in this paradigm is because that's essentially what the paradigm is maybe asking of us. It's like, don't look away, just ignore it, don't be okay with it. Just get back to your computer, just get back to your, whatever distraction it might be. And actually this is what makes being sensitive a superpower, because it just challenges, by honoring that, it simply challenges the paradigm. And by challenging the paradigm, maybe we have a chance of shifting and changing and moving to a different paradigm that is based on more humane principles. So this is where your sensitivity becomes a human power. You become a radical individual, an individual for radical change in the world. Where you create, and I always say, and I think Cindy, you'll agree, I'm not a big fan of big arcs of destiny in front of us. I'm not a fan of that. I'm really a fan of next steps. What's next on my, particularly for empaths. Don't get overwhelmed with, I'm going to save the world. That's not what I'm saying. You can have that in the back of your mind, but come back to the present. We come back to this moment, which is, what are the next steps? What's the next thing I can do? Surrender the rest. That's where our spirituality comes in, our spiritual connection. We understand that we're all interconnected. It's not for me to take on the whole weight of the world. I can only do my little bit. I just do my little bit. I surrender and trust in the benevolence of God or spirit or higher power or source, however you want to, but I surrender that and do my bit. It's all I can be responsible for. So don't get overwhelmed with, like I said, the great arc of destiny. Destiny will write itself through each step on your journey.
Shaka, I just want to add to that, if you don't mind, is that it's about just doing it for ourselves. As we do it just doing it for yourself and working with yourself and being in that space yourself. That's all, because it will mirror you in the people around you.
Absolutely.
And it's really interesting, because I've noticed that if you stop focusing on the big talk and the big fifth dimensional, and we're doing this and we're doing that, and you just focus on the immediate surroundings, in the present moment, in the conversations, in our own wholeness.
Beautifully said, Cindy. And again, you preempted me. I love it. I mean, that's what happens when you do talks with other psychics. They know what you're going to say before you say it. Thank you, Cindy. I love it. So
next slide, Shaka.
I love it. But, you know, and I was just literally going to talk about alignment. Yeah. Like alignment is that kind of real deep connection with yourself, your purpose. It's the kind of thing that happens when you drop in and really connect to who you are. And like you said, Cindy, that's it. That's you do that for yourself. Because like I said, when the dysfunction is there, it's going to be apparent. It's going to show up in your life in, like I said, various different ways. You'll know. And then it's really about being really honest with yourself. And then like what I call alignment is what then allows us to follow the path of destiny. What was I saying? Just coming back to my notes. So yeah, I truly believe those with the gift of sensitivity are here for a purpose. For each, that will be different. But it is my belief that you are here to pour the lifeblood and the soul and the heart back into the world that is losing connection with what matters most through over-reliance on technology and consumerism. So it's about us, like you said, Cindy. It starts with us. And then that is what becomes present in the world. Not in a big way. Like I said, it might be a big grand way. Maybe you will be on a big stage and helping thousands of people one day. Or maybe you'll just be with your community. Or maybe just the person that's closest to you. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how big or how small. It just matters that actually in some way that this alignment benefits you and then the people around you. It will naturally just you know, filter out to around you as well. So we've got one more slide just before we come into the little bit of a practical, and that's just a survival toolkit. Yeah. So, you know, when we start thinking about, oh, okay, like what might I need in this moment? Like what might be just, you know, before we get with these big ideas, nervous system resilience, superpowers, save the world. Like okay, so what might this actually look like in my day-to-day life? What can I actually do to help myself maybe find more alignment, find more connection, do some healing? And then so these are some of the things that I included in the previous workshop, but they're timeless. I mean, I looked at the list, I said, well, you know, it still stands. Yeah. There's some things, the general things that are for everybody, whether you're sensitive or not. Time in nature, very good. Time alone, very good. Meditation, very good. Creative outlets and pursuits. How many of you have a little creative something that you're able to do that just isn't asking your mind to be in logic, be in its logical capacity, that just allows you to kind of let your mind wander and be free, whatever that may be. And then looking after your physical body, incredibly important. Again, it doesn't mean you need to be an athlete or an Olympic, you know, swimmer. You just need to be looking after your body, whatever that is, like whether that is through exercise, movement, what we eat, drinking lots of water, getting your sleep, you know, all of these kinds of things make a difference. And this is why, you know, I started with the somatic practice today, was because you notice instant shift in your body. Depending on what you do, your body's have given you feedback. Sorry, excuse me. Oh. Yeah, we can instantly affect our body and our perception and our understanding through how we treat our body. And then things that are really, really specific for empaths. So we can all benefit from those. I recommend those for every single person on this earth. Doesn't matter who you are, you will benefit from those things. But specifically for empaths, intimate social time. So, you know, don't isolate yourself. Don't, you know, alone time is important, but also don't isolate yourself. Find places where you can be in connection, where you can be social. It might not be a big party. It might not be a big dinner party. Maybe it's just one friend that you like to connect with one-on-one. Maybe it's a small group of people that you're able to connect with, you know, however that is. So I call it intimate social time. Usually people that feel familiar and safe. But not always. So that's very important, is to find connection and good, healthy, loving connection where you can. Know yourself. Very important. Know yourself. For an empath, this is incredibly important because you're so sensitive. you're picking up on all of these things. It's really important to know who you are so that you can really know what belongs to you and what doesn't. And then you can start to do your energy work, your practice around releasing anything that isn't yours, taking things out of your space that don't need to be there, and these kinds of things. But it starts with knowing yourself. Shadow work, always say this is very important. Cindy, you know, we talked about shadow work. And, you know, sometimes I say shadow work is inner child work. Sometimes they're very, very closely connected. It's usually stuff that we've unconsciously picked up in our childhood, and then it plays out in adulthood, and we don't know why we do the things that we do, or why we feel the way that we feel, or why we experience things the way that we do. And so it's just really shining more light on areas of yourself that are a stranger to you. Yeah, it's just becoming more well acquainted with all parts of yourself. I mean, I could do a whole thing on shadow work, but it's very notoriously difficult. Shadow work is not really a thing that you just do one time and done. It's not a one time and done thing. Yeah, it's usually a continual process of discovering parts of yourself that you were maybe unaware of up until now. Boundaries, incredibly important. Another one, survival toolkit for empaths, is boundaries. It's hard, it's difficult. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel unusual. You're going to feel guilty. There's all of the things that come with boundaries, but it is necessary. Yeah. Again, even with this concept of there is a line, yeah, between me and you. This is very important for empaths, because there's such a blurred line. There's all the feeling that's flowing back and forth from what other people feel. We're very porous. So there has to be, this is a protection. There has to be a barrier sometimes, yeah? A place that says, this is my space and I am creating this space for me and it is safe. And this is what I'm willing or not willing to tolerate, or these kinds of things. Yeah. Or, you know, how I manage my time. You know, we said, you know, it's difficult. We say boundaries are the most difficult with people that we love, that we can't really disconnect from. So family or close people that kind of closest to us, that we feel like a lot of obligation towards. And your boundary doesn't have to be strong. I always say this about boundaries, don't have to be like, cut them off, you know, they can, yeah, exactly, they're movable, right? It really is about being in touch with yourself and what you have capacity for. So it might not be a case of like, hey, I never want to see my family again. It might just be, hey, I could only do 2 hours on a Sunday. That's what I've got, that's what I can do, and I can, you know what I mean? It might just be, those boundaries are what allows you to still thrive, I want to say. Yeah, be comfortable, feel safe. Gentle pursuits, low stimulus pursuits. As we said, we're living in a very hyper stimulus, like lots going on in the world. And we want to find those places where we can be gentle, be still, be quiet, be calm, low stimulus. Maybe that's doing a crossword. For me, it's Sudoku, absolutely addicted to Sudoku and jigsaw puzzles. Like these are like my little creative little things, like kind of slow, quiet things, but just find those little outlets, yeah, where you can kind of have leisure time, but you know, low stimulus, away from the phone, ideally. And then inner child work, yeah, like get in touch with that little child inside of you, and take care of them, give them what maybe they didn't have, or as growing up, really honoring that sensitive, I want to say, like, vulnerable, innocent part of you. Yeah. For empaths, that's imperative. Yeah. It's a really kind of holding a space for that part of you, the childlike self. And I would also add, turn off the TV, turn off the TV, and be very selective about what you ingest. You know, this is my last thoughts on this, is kind of what I've written, is just turn off the television and be very selective about what you mentally ingest. I reckon, you know, clear up the social media. Stop following. If you've got someone in your feed and they just constantly annoy you, just stop following them, or, you know, or take them out of your feed. Don't be into the 24-hour news cycle. You don't need to know all the awful things that are happening in real time, you know, and then you're like, oh my God, it's happening everywhere. It's happening. Oh my God, it's India, Israel. Oh my God, in America, there's fires. Oh my God, there's a flood over here. There's a tsunami. Like, just don't do it. Just don't do it. Yeah. Just because the world is on fire and everybody is talking about it, you do not actually have to. Yeah. You don't have to be in those conversations. You don't have to be in the energy of panic because of all the things that are happening. Yeah. You can choose to say, you know what, for the sake of my peace, I just don't, I'm gonna just disengage from this. Without that being a disassociation. Yeah, there's a difference between being disassociated, which is like shut down, I don't care, to just saying, I know this is happening, but it's actually not good for me to be too involved because actually I'm protecting my energy. Very important. Such a thing as vicarious trauma. Yeah, when we're constantly being aware of other traumatic things happening in the world, this is building up our own trauma, our own feeling of being unsafe. When you're feeling unsafe and tense and panicked and upset, how can we bring our medicine into the world? How can we be the light that we want to see in the world? Yeah, like the flight attendant, you know, you put your own one on first, you put your own oxygen mask on first, then you put the oxygen mask on the other people, the vulnerable ones. Yeah, we know this. How can I help anybody if I'm not protecting myself? Yeah, so that's first and foremost. And it's not, you know, it doesn't mean you don't have an opinion. I felt this incredible pressure actually, like to talk about politics and be political and activist. And I made a conscious decision that I was not going to do that anymore, actually, because it feels futile. Actually, I don't feel like that's what's helping, and I'd rather concentrate my energy on where I feel like I actually bring positive things into the world. Sometimes it's not either or. Yeah, it's not either or. Some people are really able to walk that balance, and I have nothing but respect for them. But again, comes back to know yourself. Yeah, I descend. Yeah, when I'm too involved, I just descend, I disassociate, and I shut down. I can't, literally. So that's me knowing myself. I just know what I have capacity for and know what I can do and what I can't do. Yeah. And again, everyone's going to be slightly different. Yeah, if you are here to be a healer, focus on your healing. Yeah, rather than being a healer, focus on your healing, and you will automatically be a healer, like you said, Cindy. And let's create more of these spaces of calm, of respite, of neutrality, of healing. You know, it's important because there's a lot of people we're all struggling, you know, to a large extent, we're all struggling, but we just got to keep pouring into these spaces where we can all benefit from ourselves and others. So that's what I've got for you. Have we got time for this practical, Cindy? What are your thoughts? Where are we?
I think maybe we should wrap up. I think how long is your practical?
Well, it's actually, you know, as many of you know, I'm a real big fan of journal prompts. So actually what we could do is you can take these away with you if you want to. These are just journal prompts and maybe for something for you to think about. And actually, Cindy, maybe when you send out the recording, you could maybe include these in the recording. So if you don't grab them or able to write them down now, these may be something you can just come back to. So those are just thinking about something difficult in the past that you've healed or moved on from, and what did that situation teach you? So this might be where you'll really be able to connect with your unique way of becoming more resilient. And it is said, as you said, Cindy, you know, we bring our medicine into the world through our greatest pain. And where might that be for you? Yeah, maybe thinking about where that is for you. And then if there was one thing that you could give yourself personally right now, what would it be? And what loving thing could you give yourself right now, wherever it might be? And those are just some questions to reflect on.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful questions. Thank you. Shaka, and thank you. I'm not going to keep everyone too long. Does anyone have a burning question that they'd like to ask? I actually just want to say something for those of you who need to go. Shaka is running her empath course. When is Shaka? It's in June, or
I believe it's 10th of June, I believe.
10th of
So it'll
June.
be Tuesday, the 10th of June. Yeah, for the next
And that's
cohort.
is it 8 weeks, isn't it?
8 weeks, yes.
8
Yeah.
weeks. So it will come out with the recording. We're not going to go into it's one of our most highly rated courses. So if you're interested, please do that. Also to let you know is that we're going to continue the series. I'm actually going to be talking on the 29th of May about healing the masculine and feminine into the whole in these unstable times, really mothering and fathering ourselves, because that's what makes us safe. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to go on to do some ancestral healing and then some generational trauma healing as well as a series. So kind of leading off from Shaka, I was in Wales and got inspired this weekend that that's what we needed to do. So that's where we're going to take this how do we stay steady in these times? What is the healing that we need? And just looking at something very different. So from my side, Shaka, I don't have any more questions, but just to let you know, does anyone have anything burning that they'd like to ask Shaka before we go? Or are you all good? Doesn't seem like any questions.
Oh, we've got one.
Hello, Rachel. Lovely to see you.
Hi, hello. Well, good evening from England. Yeah, I'm just trying to make this really quick. I was just wondering about the empath course you do, Shaka. Would you be covering anything for those who are really sensitive when it comes to their sleep and their dreams? Because I've become even more sensitive because of my chronic pain condition, and the issue I've got really is basically I've come into a bit more of alignment in knowing when I have these vivid dreams that I wake up and some of these things aren't to do with my own generational past things to do with my life or even my family's, like my father or my mother's line. And I wake up and I'm conscious that I've been connecting to some like the collective unconsciousness. And it's like I'm trying. So I feel like I'm processing other people's traumas when I'm waking up, but it gives me a lot of pain. And I feel like I don't know whether this my thoughts on this is that I have to go, because I'm part of the collective, we're all part of the collective unconsciousness. So my thoughts are that I have to go through the fear and to not make, well, to develop like to feel safe and not feel fear in those dreams, to be able to come through and help process it. But I don't know, it's very tiring. So it's effective.
And Rachel, thank you so much. Just really for sharing that. And there's so much I want to say, and I want to try and keep this really, really short. First of all, I don't go into any great detail in terms of dreams in the course. I cover it a little bit. I think you've got a grasp of it, which is that, it's part of how the unconscious communicates with the conscious, is often through dreams, and whether that be your personal unconscious or it sounds like what your experience is kind of collective connection to the unconscious, which is pretty incredible gift. But it sounds like not something that you're able to manage at the moment. So I don't go into that in any great detail. But there's definitely some resources that I could give you in terms of how to explore dreams. I would also say, Cindy, I don't know your thoughts on this, but my feeling is that there is a way to protect yourself from doing this. I just feel like I believe in ultimately a benevolent spirit, and I just feel like, no, they wouldn't be asking you to work this hard. They just wouldn't be doing that. So I think there's just something in this around kind of asking spirit to just maybe like ease off a little bit. Like, this is not your work. This is not your job to process all of the pain of the unconscious. It's not this is not your, So I think there will be some energetic work, and then also some work around how to work with your dreams a bit more, I would say.
Okay.
Cindy, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, and also maybe do a bit of one-on-one work with one of our practitioners. Just reach out to the community or me, to our admin team, or to me tomorrow, and we could put you in touch with a couple of, practitioners just to help you on a one-on-one to get to a place that you can get to sleep and that you're not being worried by the collective or astral traveling into that space. Because the astral body has a tendency to want to go there, and maybe we just need to sort out some karmic past lives and things like that. So we have got somebody, a couple of people who might work with you to support that.
Okay,
Mm.
all right, thank you. Yeah, there's still other things on the outline of your course that I'm still trying to. Some of it I'm doing, some of I'm still new to me. So yeah.
Please feel free to drop me an email. So if you have any
Okay.
questions, you're more than welcome to email me as well. And if I can, answer any questions, I of course I will.
Okay, lovely.
Shaka's
Thank
email
you.
is on our website.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So thank you very much, Rachel. From my side, Shaka, it's always so nice to share space with you. It feels like, that we meant to share space, and I really enjoy it. And I hope, I'm looking forward to this course again, and
Yeah.
maybe doing some somatic work with our community. You need to think about that.
I'd love to. I'd love to. Yeah, I feel like I'm only just touching the surface of it. It's massive, but incredible. So I'd love to. Absolutely. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Thank you
And I
so
look
much.
forward to
Thank
seeing you all in healing your mother and your father energy and your ancestors' energy and your future generations' energy in the next months to come. Lovely to see you all, sending love and light as always. And see you all soon. Shaka, take care, lots of love.
And you,
Bye.
Cindy, great to see you. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.